Nice. Okay. I believe that we are live. I think I need to just check on a LinkedIn setting here to be sure. Okay. I'm not exactly sure if we're live, but I'm assuming that we are because we're streaming. So I think we can kick it off.
Okay.
All right. For those who are listening, let me see if is there anybody here that I can find in the chat. Give me a few seconds, Lomit, to make sure I didn't mess anything up here. Okay, let's go back to the events. Okay. Letting some people trickle in. I can confirm now that we're live. I can see in LinkedIn that we are live and streaming. So now I need to be careful what I say. Let me start by introducing myself and then my guest. I'm Paris Childress. I'm the founder and CEO of Hop AI and also GEO Forge. And my co-host is Lomit Patel. Lomit is the author of Lean AI, a book that he wrote in 2019 that we're going to talk about today. And he's had an extensive journey in growth marketing. He's currently leading growth at TYB and is doing a lot of other cool stuff. But before we get into any questions, Lomit, why don't you say hi, introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. My name's Lomit Patel. Super excited to be on this with Paris on this journey. And today we're going to be talking about this book that I wrote, and it came out actually, Paris, can you believe it? It came out in April 2020. So 6 years ago. Yeah.
That was pre-COVID, wasn't it?
It was.
By a few months.
It was pre-COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. And that feels like, that feels like it could have been 20 years ago, actually. When you think about how much the world changed during COVID, and then once things got back to normal, then the AI wave hit us. Almost immediately. I don't think there was even much of a window between COVID and the launch of ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT, like 2022, really accelerated, the adoption for AI, not only for like companies, but also for users as well, right? That really, was a systemic shift in terms of the adoption was a lot faster than what I would have, what I had initially predicted in the book.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, what if ChatGPT had been launched actually during COVID? Do you think that would have changed anything, or?
I think it was launched right around COVID, right? People were coming out of COVID. So, I think in terms of timing, I think that had a lot to do with it because people still had a lot of time. People were still working from home or working remotely. So, I think it really enabled people to spend more time to try and learn that whole new technology, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get to the book, Lomit. In 2019, you wrote the Lean AI, and it was based on the Lean startup methodology from Eric Ries. And he wrote a really amazing foreword to your book, which is great. And I guess a lot of those same principles you were applying to an age of AI, but you were envisioning what you thought was coming. But let's start with this question. What motivated you to write this book about this topic around that time?
Yeah, I would say, the main premise was really, trying to deal with some of the challenges that I've, was dealing with, throughout my whole career in growth and marketing, and it's something that all of us as marketers and deal with, which is ultimately, how can we acquire customers more efficiently? How can we engage and retain customers more efficiently? And how can we monetize customers better? And for the most part, the way we were going about that was really around running experiments to try and really figure out who are the right customers to target, which are most efficient campaigns. How can we scale up those campaigns? What's the right message or the creative? And a lot of that really came down to just running experiments, running A/B tests, and looking at data, and then trying to help that sort of project out, what decisions we would want to make. And what I will say is, ultimately it was a huge manual process, right? And so the question that I was asking myself, this was back in like 2016, 2017, was, is there a better way to do this? Because that's when there was so much more customer data that was proliferating. And the idea was, it was just taking us a lot more effort, right, to really pass through running these experiments and looking at data to really figure out, how we could continue to optimize and grow. And that's when, I would say, I was fortunate to have worked at a company called IMBU, which was actually, the company where Eric Ries was one of the co-founders, and he actually wrote the original Lean Startup book, which was based on what he had done at IMBU. And so my premise there, being in a company where, they're always looking to try new things was great, because the idea for me was to really figure out, how could we do this in the age of AI that was coming with all of this data. And so really taking the principles of the Lean Startup, where you ran a lot of experiments to test, learn, and iterate, but how do you do it at scale? And that was the premise of the book, because we started applying a lot of these principles at IMVU. And the more I started doing this at IMVU, the more profound we started seeing how much quickly we were able to scale and grow that business. And consequently, I started sharing more of this information, speaking about it, writing about it, and a lot of the feedback that I got was very positive, where a lot of other companies really wanted to learn about it. And was really the idea where ultimately I ended up writing the book Lean AI, which really talked about the whole playbook that we had used at IMV to really build a huge, compelling business, where we went from a social gaming app that was, what I would say, ranked over like 250, 260 to being the number two highest grossing app in the App Store, and doing it really efficiently with a lean team.
Yeah. And I suppose now the premise would be that with AI, you can even 10x the number of experiments. You can move that much faster. Have you been experiencing any of that lately with all the new tools that are out there?
Yeah. So what I would say is, a couple of the things that I've noticed is obviously, back in like 2017, 2018, when we were doing a lot of this, there wasn't a lot of tools out there. And so we had to sort of build a lot of the connectors and try to connect different platforms that we had, like our CRM platform, our customer data platform, our paid marketing optimization platform, and really kind of get all these different platforms to work together and be able to help us, identify the entire customer journey and how we could better personalize and scale and at different stages. But now, a lot of these platforms have really started to integrate, which was something that I had predicted, that, more and more platforms will start implementing a lot of AI and automation into these growth tech platforms. primarily because this, marketing now has really become a data game, right? It's all about data,
Absolutely.
using data to really help you optimize, scale, and grow. And, a lot of these platforms have so much data now that, building a lot of these toolings around AI and automation was just a natural byproduct of the evolution of these tools. And so, I would say, a lot of this now is built into the tools. And so it's not as hard as it was, when we were doing it, back in like 2017 and
Yeah.
2018.
I remember distinctly that before the biggest ad platforms, Google and Meta primarily, they were using the term machine learning much more than they were saying. They were referring to it as AI. But then once ChatGPT launched as a AI chatbot or when generative AI took off because of ChatGPT's launch, then I remember Google started to switch their terminology, and you didn't hear much about machine learning anymore, but it was AI. But it was really the same thing. It's leveraging all that data. It is machine learning. It's predictive, and now it's just getting more and more advanced so quickly. And it has been baked into, at least to the ad platforms and to a lot of the sophisticated tools, CRMs, marketing automation. It has been baked in, but now I think we're seeing the generative tools, the frontier models, especially Claude, becoming almost a new layer between the MarTech stack and the marketer. And that's the newest trend that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would say, when I initially wrote the book, and a lot of things, that I talked about was really helping companies get smarter around adopting AI to help businesses to scale and grow more efficiently with lean teams. But, the big change that has really happened now is the adoption of AI, being adopted by users. And so now, instead of just companies using it, it has become that distribution layer that really connects brands and customers, right? And really becomes that mediating layer. So it's not only about how brands are using AI, but how customers are using it. And so, I feel like, the challenge isn't just how companies are going to use AI, but how they're going to be able to leverage AI so that when customers are looking for different information, because customers now have really bypassed what I predicted was probably going to happen 5-10 years in the future, has really happened like in 2-3 years, since the book came out, where a lot of users now are really just going to ChatGPT or an AI and really asking questions about, around, which product, that they should be looking for based on their needs, which brands are better in the marketplace, and a lot of these like questions are now, instead of going to search where you're searching for things and Google was surfacing, people are just going straight into ChatGPT, to Gemini, Perplexity, and really just bypassing that whole layer. So the challenge for companies isn't just how they're using AI to get more efficient to reach customers, but how they can ensure that when customers are going into AI, that they will still surface and show up.
Yeah. This is the new Discovery Channel, certainly.
Yeah.
So Lomit, I have here 6 predictions. I want to go back, time capsule here, and I want to take you through 6 predictions that you made in the book that turned out to be true. And I'd like you to tell me, well, basically, how did you see it coming, or were you just lucky? Did it happen even sooner than you thought? And just give me a little bit of your reaction to each one. So I'll
Sure.
start with number 1, and that is that's going to be maybe a little controversial, so we won't linger too much on this one. But you cited a Gartner report that was a 2017 Gartner report, and that predicted and you predicted then that AI will create more jobs than it eliminates. And at that time, you were really going against the dominant narrative, which was pure job destruction. And I believe that you're correct, because I think that there are now a lot of new AI adjacent roles that are popping up. And I do believe that a lot of roles will go away, but a lot of new roles are popping up. And I don't think it's about pure destruction, but I do think that AI is going to create more than it eliminates. What is your take on this first prediction?
Yeah, I mean, my prediction there is, when you look at a lot of the different trends that have come out, that have kind of, disrupted how things were being done, it's always ended up creating new and different types of jobs. And so, with AI, what I had predicted was AI will do a lot of the grunt, manual, rudimentary tasks, which is pretty much doing today, right? Now, in terms of like running experiments, executing experiments, AI and automation can take care of a lot of that. AI can really surface insights a lot quicker on different experiments that are happening. But ultimately, you still need to have humans in the loop who are able to decipher what that really means, right? Because for the most part, AI is going to be able to give you recommendations, but it's not, going to be able to make, it's really a growth lever and not a growth strategy. By that, what I mean is, it's there to be leveraged to enable businesses to do, to achieve their goals. But ultimately, you still need humans to kind of use that judgment, right? In terms of, the recommendations that are being surfaced, if those are the right recommendations for that business at any given time. So,
Yeah.
I think, the big change that when I wrote the book, at least in the marketing roles, I had predicted that growth teams would become more technical. By that, marketers have to do more than just understand data. Product teams have to understand more than just growth. They have to understand the entire customer journey. And the operators, for the most part, now we call it like prompting, but the idea is, training humans to be able to interact with the AI and ask the right questions and really be able to challenge AI in different ways to ensure that the right recommendations are still coming out. But the biggest thing, the reason why I said, jobs would still be important is because at the end of the day, you still need evangelists in every corporation to ensure that AI is being adopted across companies. And that AI can't go and advocate for itself. It needs humans to advocate and ensure that everyone in different teams are doing their part to support AI so that AI is able to be efficient. And I went through this myself at IMVU. Ultimately AI is only as good as the data that you put into it. And so you got to ensure that all the other teams around data infrastructure, around data science, and all of those other teams and engineering, are fully on board, or else, you're not going to be able to be successful by just, pushing AI down everyone's throats.
Yeah, that brings me to another prediction. But before I get to that, I'll make a comment. I generally think that the job of marketing is going to become the marketers that will be most successful in the age of AI are going to be more generalists who can orchestrate AI to get what they want. But I think in the past, say 10 years or so in digital marketing, the best career strategy was to be really, really good at one thing, to have the so-called T-shaped, where you had a pretty good understanding across the horizontal stack, but then you could go very deep into one thing. So maybe you were great at email marketing, or maybe you were the expert at Google Ads, for example. But now everyone can create images, videos, landing pages with the tools that we have. Everyone can create copy, very effective copy. People can run with the help of AI, they can operate very effectively inside of these platforms. They can analyze data. So I think now it's actually better to be more of a generalist who can work with AI. And I think that's going to enable these marketing teams to get even leaner, where a few years ago, you would have a full marketing team, you'd have a bunch of specialists across all the channels. But now I think it's more about reorganizing that around maybe a team of generalists who can, everybody can do almost anything, but they're all orchestrating AI. So AI is doing most of the actual creation work. And then the marketing generalists are directing them, steering them, giving them feedback, and essentially being accountable for the results, because AI is still not accountable really for the ROI of a campaign or the results. So you still need that accountability with the human.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I would add to that is the role of the marketer is really to be a great cross-functional leader. So it's not only about understanding all the different areas of marketing, but also being able to have influence to be able to work well with a product team, work well with the engineering team, work well with the data team, to work well with a finance team, because there's so many different stakeholders that need to come on board for AI to be successful. And so, I feel, that's where, we hear a lot around soft skills, and I think that is super, super important. It was important for me, when I was implementing this at IMVU. It wouldn't have been successful if, I wasn't able to convince and influence other teams to really get on board and, behind this. So.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point. I think that marketers are some of the first people to really get deep into these tools, and they have the unique opportunity to evangelize them across the organization and to show other departments what's possible. So I think that's a real privilege that a lot of marketers have, is that they can evangelize this within their company outside of the marketing org.
Yeah, I think, I think that's one of the reasons why you and I like being in marketing, right? Because, it's definitely, an exciting role, because it gets to really, it's all about sort of helping not only the company and the product look good, but it's also about trying to sort of figure out, what's next and try to evangelize that as well.
Yeah. So I want to move to the next prediction, which was segued at the end of the first one that we were discussing. We were discussing data, and the prediction that you made in 2019 is that your own proprietary first-party customer data is your most valuable competitive moat. And publicly accessible data, such as data that's on your website or on the web in general, will never give you the same edge. This one, to me, rings very, very true. But tell me what was going through your head back then with regard to first-party data being a competitive moat.
Yeah, I feel, that data has been proliferating, and, ultimately, the way you're going to stand out is to truly, understand your customers and have that relationship with them, and that's and based on that relationship, you're going to get access to a lot of rich data. And that data is really going to enable you to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Just kind of going back and making a quick point. As AI is a force multiplier, but it's not going to be the thing that's going to differentiate your company and make it successful. By that, what I mean is that, there's a couple of things. You still have to have great product market fit at different junctures of as your company grows, right? So, that's super important. You got to have, a strong way of differentiating yourself, whether that's through your brand and how you position yourself. And, you got to be able to be really customer centric. And so for all of those components, that's where your own first party data helps you to stand out. And so, getting access to that is really a competitive moat, because, if you have that data, then you're able to make the right pivots and the right decisions, to be able to differentiate yourself.
Yeah. That's great. I see this in a couple of ways. When I think about first-party data, this was a term that I had been using in those early 2000s quite a lot, but it was not in the context of AI specifically. It was in the context of the ad platforms, primarily Google Ads, Meta ads, and to a lesser degree, LinkedIn ads. But starting with Google Ads, what we saw was that for people that were spending a good amount in advertising, there was basically the algorithm, the algorithm that powers Google Ads. It feeds on data, and it's hungry for that first-party data. So this could be CRM data or data from marketing automation platforms. But at any time when we connected first-party data, especially from a CRM, so you could see after someone did a conversion in Google Ads, maybe they became a lead, they went into the CRM, and then within 7 days, some of them became an opportunity. They had a value, they had a dollar value associated with them. And if we flowed that first-party data back to the ad platforms, that was the strongest signal of quality of the click. And that would empower those platforms to optimize much, much better and get higher quality leads in the future. So the conversation around first-party data for me was all about what can we feed to the ad platforms to power their algorithms. But now I think about it in terms of what proprietary data that the brand has beyond just maybe simply in the systems themselves, but also including things like recorded meetings, sales call transcripts, or recorded meetings with customers that the account managers are doing, support tickets, support logs, anywhere that you can actually capture the voice of the customer, the real voice of the customer. That's also first-party data. This is proprietary data. And this is also what AI is hungry for, because AI has already pretty much sucked up the entire internet and trained on it. And now it's looking for the so-called dark data. And that is what we're going to be talking a lot about, I think, throughout this series, is identifying dark data in the organization and getting it efficiently fed and trained for AI so that AI can surface that in its answers as people are using AI now for discovery. And that's now how I think about first-party data. I think more about it as, yes, it is first-party data, but it's proprietary. It's nothing that the LLMs have already scraped from the internet. It's not out there already. So when you feed that to them, they're just going to lap it up. They're going to love it. And that's our job now too, as marketers, I think, is to try to figure out where this dark data lives and to unlock it, and then to ultimately to publish around it so that these models can get trained on it.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I feel first party data, especially the data that isn't publicly available, is really the most valuable data, because that's the most authentic data that you have, especially when you look at transcripts of your sales team, of your customer onboarding team, of your support team. You're really getting the true voice of how customers are interacting with your brand. And that's the, creating content and around that voice of how a customer truly discovers your brand, and putting that into LLMs is really going to help differentiate you from all of the publicly available data that LLMs are scraping right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to move to the next prediction, which I think was a really interesting one in 2019. You predicted, this is in chapter 2, you cited a 2018 BI intelligence report. And you said that AI will move from analytics into content creation, and machines will help cut production time, but humans are still needed for creative strategy. I mean, I have to say this one you really nailed, because now, I mean, there's an explosion of creative content that's been created with AI, image tools, video tools. There's so many good ones out there now, and you can do it so fast that it, at least 10x is the amount of creative testing and experiments that you can run. Just getting back to the earlier point that you made, that one you really nailed. So I want to know, how did you see back then AI was mostly considered just a data crunching, machine learning kind of a thing back then, but you foresaw that this could actually be creating content. Of course, it started with written content, but now we're multimodal. We can do everything. We're up to 15-second videos, and I think that's going to get longer, very soon. So what prompted you to have this vision 6 or 7 years ago that AI was going to be able to create this kind of content at this quality?
Yeah, what I would say is, a big reason why I predicted that was because we were starting to apply a lot of that when I was at IMVU. But the way we were applying it was we had created these templates of ads that we're running through like Google and Facebook, Snapchat, and TikTok, and a bunch of other like platforms. But what we were feeding into those templates was a lot of content. At that time, was a lot of like static content, like different headlines, different call to actions, different images, and different snippets of like video. So we literally went from like testing, like 50 to 100 variations or permutations of creative to doing over 10,000 different variations and permutations of creative. Predominantly because we just automated a lot of that, had AI just really sort of, start, slicing and dicing a lot of content, which is now, being adopted by like Facebook and Google. Cause it's like, in Google and Facebook, now they just tell you put this text or put these images, and they kind of do the same thing, right? To try and do, different variations to figure out, the best match. The one thing at that time, which I didn't really predict, was video was still really challenging. It was really hard to get video content. And that part of the creative I predicted would probably take maybe 5 to 10 years. And I was super surprised, that was a big surprise for me, that how quickly video has been adopted by AI. And now, you can create a lot of like compelling video content. You can even create AI generated creators content too. And there's, that, is definitely happening a lot faster than I had predicted, the whole video motion content. But I would say, big reason for that and happening is because the adoption for ChatGPT, when it came out in 2022, so many people, they had, hundreds of millions of people just using and interacting with that the training of those models have proliferated at a much faster rate than I had originally, projected that would have happened, because I didn't expect to be mass adoption, but it happened really quickly. And that's, I would say, at any given day, like today is going to be the dumbest model you're going to see in AI. It's only going to keep getting smarter because more and more people are using it. The more and more it's going to continue to learn. And so creative, is it's definitely done, an amazing job in terms of how AI generated content. But the challenge now is, how do you differentiate? Because now that there's so much content that's out there, how do you trust what content is authentic? What content, is trustworthy or not? And I think that's the next challenge now. It's less about creating content, but it's about how to make your content stand out.
Yeah, I think that there will be always a premium for human generated content, but there isn't yet a clear labeling system. And I do think we're probably close to having a universal labeling system where all AI generated, especially for videos, also for images, where AI generated content will be clearly labeled and human generated content will be labeled. And some people will have a preference. I think that there'll really be a premium for human content that requires that extra effort. But still, a lot of the AI content is going to be highly effective, I think, for especially for marketers. And it's going to be trying to figure out when I can use AI for productivity and efficiency and testing, and then when I should also sprinkle in some pure human generated content that will be recognized for its authenticity, and I'll be rewarded for that as well. But I think in the social media platforms, soon enough, we're going to have clear labeling that this whole stream of your feed is AI generated, but you know it. And this stream here has been curated, and we can guarantee you that this is all human generated stuff. And I think that's probably what users are going to want, to have that kind of a separation in the future.
Yeah, I feel there's there's going to be some way to differentiate between AI generated and human generated content. One of the things that one of the reasons why I feel user generated content is really valuable, because right now that's still a key way to differentiate, because people know user generated content that's really coming from your community of users, that your brand fans are creating is a key differentiator, and that's what we found as well. And that's what we actually found back at IMVU, because we had a huge community of millions of of users, and a lot of them were really created a lot of user generated content, which is what we were using to putting that through AI to help us come up with different variations and permutations of creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Well, Lomit, I think I've got time for one more question as we wrap up here.
Yeah.
And getting back to the book, did writing the book change the way that you think about and run marketing teams?
Yeah, I would say writing the book, the biggest thing about writing the book is it helps you do a retrospective, right? I was obviously writing a book and I was doing a lot of the work at the same time. So I was really applying a lot of the things that I was talking about, a lot of things that I was practicing. And, what that helps you, especially as a leader, is to help you communicate, and ideate much better with your teams, but also, be able to communicate and get more and more people on board with different ideas, more effectively, just by being able to articulate those ideas, in a written form. So,
yeah. Do you think now that you can do more with less people in marketing by leveraging AI?
absolutely. I think, and I've always said it, the whole premise for the book wasn't just solving a problem that I was experiencing. It was a problem that all of us in marketing and growth teams and organizations face. Doesn't matter if you're a small startup or if you're a huge multinational corporation, you always are being challenged to do more with less. And I feel AI ultimately is a force multiplier. It enables teams and people to really be able to do more with less. And I think it's important, to not just be AI literate, but also to be AI native by continuing to apply it into your role each and every day, to see how it can help you be more efficient. But also the biggest impact from AI isn't going to really come from people using it for themselves, but it's going to come from them using it across different workflows across the whole entire organization, how teams interact with different teams, how things get executed, and applying it into different workflows that happen across cross-functional teams. That's where you'll see the biggest value on the company side. And then on the user side, I feel, more and more users are very comfortable going into AI to try and get answers to different questions that they have. And so the challenge for companies now is to what, you and I were talking about, is what are the right positive, authentic signals that really help build trust with these different AIs for your brand or your product to stand out and be surfaced when people are going and looking for answers that are related to a product or service that you can help it surface and have AI recommend you versus another brand.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to leave it, because that is what we're going to be talking about a whole lot on the show and future episodes, which is that AI is also now the new front door to the journey that most people go on when they do research to decide to buy something or solve a problem or get information. And that is really, really transforming digital marketing in ways that I haven't seen in my 20 odd years of doing it so far. And it's very, very exciting because it's not necessarily about getting ranked on a page with other pages, but it's about being the answer that is chosen and synthesized and presented as the only answer, the single answer in an LLM conversation. So it's higher stakes. It's a little bit more a kind of a winner take all situation. But we're going to be talking in this show, which is called the GEO Journey for Generative Engine Optimization. We are going to be exploring the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to be testing things out, talking about what's working, what's not working. And it's a new and exciting field. So I hope that everyone who's listening is going to join us also on this journey. We certainly don't have all the answers, but we're going to explore this in public and be very transparent about what we're learning, what we have tried that didn't work, and how we're trying to pivot and get closer and closer to figuring out this new exciting channel.
Yes, super excited, Paris, to be on this journey with you, and for us to really just share. I feel, that there's a lot of learnings we're going to have along the way, and, excited to really apply, the best way for brands to show up with, GEO and and really learn from us, as we continue to just be fully transparent and sharing, what's working and what's not for us.
Yeah. So, well, that'll do it for now. And next week, we're going to be diving deeper into GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. What is it? Why now? What are some of the early strategies? How similar is it to SEO? How different is it to traditional SEO? And a whole lot more. So I hope you all are going to start to join us on Tuesdays. It's going to be nighttime in Europe, and it's going to be early afternoon or late morning in the US, depending on where you are. But keep your eye on LinkedIn. We're going to be publishing these LinkedIn Live events. And hopefully we're going to both learn a whole lot here, Lomit, and hopefully our audience will have a good time on this journey with us.
Yeah, for sure. Excited to get this going.
All right. So I'll close it out for today, and hopefully we'll see each other next week and talk to you then. All right.